So this is our third and final session for tonight, but hopefully we'll continue more with these sources to cover them because we have to go to the Talmud and all that. So now I want to go through the sources of the Mishnah, and this is in order of the Mishnah. So we'll see what do we find in the Mishnah in terms of the culture and the seat in life of the of that subject of modesty. So here we have this is a very strange Mishnah in Tractate Hala. The woman may sit and separate her hala while naked, since she has the ability to cover herself, but a man may not do so. I'm not even in terms of modesty. Just think of like, I mean, either a man or woman, right? They're talking about the ability to say bracha while naked, but who would like to eat that bread? I don't know, but I mean, it's.
Unless it's in the middle of the test, 130 degrees.
Exactly. No, but this is important to understand that we talk about a different culture of how people dress. I mean, it's impossible that when we talk about all the sort of the intricate laws of how to cover oneself, they definitely did not apply then. People lived differently, but okay, just I don't want to get really too much into that specific Mishnah. More interesting is this section from Masechet Shabbat. So 3 Mishnayot, not in
page 3 now.
Yeah, that's page 3, source 3-2. Masechet Shabbat, chapter 6, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 5, Mishnah 6. This is about what a woman is allowed to carry out to public property, and this is when there's no eruv. So the fear is that she's going to take it off and show it to her friends, and that will be considered carrying in public property. So, what is she allowed to take out and what she cannot go out with? לא תצא אישה לא בחוטי צמר ולא בחוטי פשתן ולא ברצועות שבראשה ולא תטבול בהם עד שתרפם ולא בתותפת ולא בסנבוטין בזמן שאינם תפורין. She cannot go out with wool ribbons or with flax or linen ribbons or with straps on her head. She cannot immerse with them until she loosens them. She cannot go out with something called totefet or sanbutin when they are not stitched. So I'll tell you how I understand that, and let's say I would look at the Mishnah without commentary, and how the commentators understood that. Without commentary, the way to read that is we're talking about some kind of an extension that women used to weave into their hair, either from wool or linen or anything else to beautify their hair. Retzuot is probably leather, even though it's not translated here, but it's leather straps. And if she needs to go to the mikveh, she has to loosen them because they're not hair. Totefet and butim is some kind of accessory, but it has to be stitched or woven into something that she wears. So later commentators understood that as she has already her hair is already covered. On top of that, she has wool or linen or something else woven into the hair with that hair cover. That is like Aaron mentioned before, that the later commentator projects into the text his reality. In the reality of the commentators, whether Rambam or others, women did not do that. Women did not add this kind of extension into their hair, and women cover their hair. So he's thinking of those additions being woven into the hair through the veil or the totefet and sanbutim, those accessories connected to the svacha, to the veil that she puts on her hair. Now in Mishnah 5, and we'll see that there will be more of that discussion in the Talmud. In Mishnah 5 we read this: Yotzet isha behutei se'ar ben mishela ben mishel haverta ben mishel behema ופתותפת ופסלמותים ממה שהם תפורים בחבול ובפאה נוכרית לחצר. A woman may go out with braids of hair whether of her own hair, or of another woman, or of an animal. So I'm going to skip the totefet and butins, like frontlet or bangles, if they are sewn to the cap, with the cap, or with a wig into the courtyard. So she can go to the public domain with braids of hair, whether it's her own hair or another woman or an animal. So this is not a wig, right? Because they will speak about the wig later on at the end of the Mishnah, with the wig into the courtyard. But the wig can also only be carried into the courtyard and not into the public domain. So part of the big confusion of this Mishnah is what is called the seat in life, or Zitzim Leben. It's like what exactly you didn't have pictures of the women at the time and what they wore. I mean, you have some from engravings and and murals, etc. But the way it's described here, it's hard to tell. It seems, again, just reading the Mishnah as it is, this I think what it means, that women used to weave hair into their hair. So there are two types of extensions or embellishments for the hair. Either it's artificial material, and that was commented on in the first Mishnah, because it's of a different category. It's either wool, linen, or leather, and then you have hair, and the hair could either be hers or another woman, or even an animal.
Horsehair.
Could be horsehair, yeah. Either from the tail. It's
that's what they used to make wigs of.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So
up until whatever, all the wigs were made out of horsehair.
okay.
So wait, are we saying these are both different kinds of hair extensions? Like one is
we have artificial material,
flax,
yeah,
and whatever leather,
yeah,
which is weird. But,
no, if they cut leather into very thin, people do that. Yeah.
And then this other one is her hair, or
right?
Somebody else's hair,
right? Somebody else's hair. So it's a different category, and that probably she did not have to loosen when she went to the mikveh because it's part of her hair, but it's not covered. This otherwise, why would she do that? Whereas that Mishnah clearly shows that women did not cover their hair. I mean, later commentators, again, same thing. So she has embellishment, and on top of that, the cover. It doesn't make sense. Why would she do that? So this Mishnah clearly shows us that there were two types of artificial hair covering. One was hair of any sort that was woven into her own hair, and the other one was the wig, pe'anochrit. The pe'anochrit, pe'anochri is foreign, not hers. Pe'ah is corner, so either it's something that covers part of her hair or all of her hair. Why can she only go with it to the courtyard and not to the public domain? Because this is something that she might remove and show her friends, and that because this echo, yeah. If she's bound to take it off and show her friends, that means that it's okay for her to show her natural hair. So again, we go back to the reality where it's okay for a woman to show her hair in public, and that is a text that the Talmud in Ketubot will struggle with, and it's important to look at it here. In Ketubot, the Talmud doesn't use the word pe'anochit; it uses the word kaflet. Kaflet that I saw the commentators derive from the word capilu, or like cabellos in Spanish, but capilut in Latin, which means fine hair. So it was some type of hair. Yes, cool.
But it's
In the time of the Mishnah, from this Mishnah, and we'll see. As I said, we move on later on, and that's the Midrash Halacha that we saw. Even though generally Midrash Halacha comes before the Mishnah, but Rabbi Shmuel is of the generation of Rabbi Akiva, so it's a later layer of the Mishnah. In this Mishnah, we get the message that women did reveal their hair in public. Now look at Mishnah 6. In Hebrew is this: Arviot yosot re'ulot umadiyot perufot v'chol adam ela shediberu hachamim ba'oveh. The women of Arabia, the women who live in the Arabian parts, may go out in their veils, and Median women of Madai, of Persian women, in their mantias and or mantles, and like so may anyone. But the Hachamim speak of common custom, meaning any woman is allowed to go out with a veil. Any woman is allowed to go out with a prifa. A prifa actually means sort of a shawl that is put together with a small object. We used to do it as kids, but in the past everybody used to do that. When you don't have a button, you just put a little stone and you wrap the other side of the cloth around, and that's the way to tie things. So they say porefet be'even or be'egoz, with a nut or with a little stone. So the idea of prifa was you have two elements here. First, the stone or the nut that you add to make the tie that might fall and you're going to carry it, and the shawl itself. So, but that was the practice
with the stone, because once you put the stone, the knot is not gonna come off.
Right. So it's knotted around it. Yeah.
It will hold it.
Mm-hmm. But women in Persia had the custom to go out with this kind of garment, and women in Arabia used to go with a veil, meaning that women who lived in other places did not. So again, Mishnah says very simply, women did not cover their hair.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so now we get to our beautiful, problematic Mishnah in Ketubot. I didn't Mishnah 5. Oh, this is missing. No. So I don't want to look at Mishnah 5 now. It's chapter 7, Mishnah 5 in Masechet Ketubot, and we'll go back to it later. Mishnah 6 is the important one. The following women are divorced, meaning the husband is allowed to divorce them and without paying the ketubah. Who are these women? If a woman who transgresses or breaches the law of Moshe and the law of Yehudit. Do you realize that when you say dat Yehudit, it doesn't mean the Jewish law. Because if it's a Jewish law, they should have written Dat Moshe v'Israel. Right. It's Dat Moshe v'Yehudit, of women, of Jewish women. That's understood clearly as the practice of Jewish women. So one who violates Mosaic law or the custom of Jewish women, that Yehudit. What constitutes a violation of Mosaic law? Ma'achilato שאינו מעוסר ומשמשתו נידה ולא קוצה לחלה ונודרת ואינה מקיימת. So all these things, she feeds him untithed food, she engages in intercourse with him while she's in Nida, and she does not set apart a chala, and she makes vows but does not fulfill them. So all these things, they have one thing in common. Right, it's all halacha, it's all biblical halacha, and it's all things that he cannot tell. He doesn't know whether they're true or not. And actually, two of them, at least, I encounter all the time with couples who come to me for a consultation. It's the one side doesn't know if the other side keeps kosher at home, and one side is not interested in keeping the laws of family purity. Usually the woman is not interested and the husband is the more religious, and then they have problems, and we have to try to solve that. So, first of all, we know that there was a situation of Mishamashtonida, a woman who's supposed to go to the mikveh but doesn't, and she tells her husband that she did. And he doesn't know that it happened, and then until he finds out. In that case, he's allowed to divorce her and not pay her ketubah. So all these are biblical prohibitions. She's not keeping the neder. She feeds him food from which tithes were not taken. And she doesn't separate the challah, all these problems. Now, there's another category, and that is Jewish custom. Now, what is a violation of not Jewish custom, of the custom of Jewish women? If she goes out in public with her hair uncovered. See, this is from Sefaria, so the translation is automatically with uncovered, but the Hebrew says parua, and parua is undone or unbound. Parua, like we said before, clearly undone. Also, if she spins thread in the market and converses flirtatiously with any man, Abba Shaul also said if she curses his children or some say his parents in his presence, and Rabbi Tarfon adds also a noisy woman. What constitutes a noisy woman? One who speaks in her own house so loudly that her neighbors can hear her voice. Now, the Gemara will explain that is when she speaks loudly about intimate issues. Then that is like they don't have privacy. In that, now before we go into that, it's important to go to the previous Mishnah, and that is where a woman is allowed to file for a divorce and get ketubah. One of them is that she must fill a given number of buckets and pour them on a garbage dump. You must divorce her and pay her ketubah. The Gemara says this is a euphemism for a certain type of forbidden sexual activity. It's not clear from there whether it is or not, but it is a possibility. However, go back to Mishnah 6. The first 4 prohibitions are biblical, and one could sort of understand why a woman would be divorced for that. But when we talk about a violation of Jewish of the practice of Jewish women, here's where the Gemara sort of fails to look at the common denominator. We have to look at the common denominator. If a husband can divorce his wife for going with the hair uncovered, let's take it to today's reality, right? For a second, an Orthodox woman who goes publicly with her hair uncovered, her husband could go to the local bedin and say, this is not right. Okay, what if she spins threads in the market? What did she do wrong? What is she doing wrong? Spinning thread in the marketplace?
No, this is
a euphemism.
A euphemism. I was just thinking, even sa parua, that it doesn't mean literally in the narrow sense, but it means she goes out not properly dressed,
right.
Not groomed.
It seems like that, right?
That she embarrasses her husband. That
in a certain way.
That she doesn't go in a sort of respectable manner.
Right. So she
that's the sort of tzad hashava of these things. That she doesn't behave in a proper, say, ladylike manner, or like a respectable person.
Yeah. So she projects an image for him.
Yeah.
And that is a problem, right?
That she projects as very sort of
right. So that's a possibility.
Unkempt, unmannered, and embarrasses him in a sense.
So he says,
look at his wife. Look,
Right. So that seems to be the common denominator. So, and that would perfectly fit into the definition of dat Yehudit, the practice of Jewish women. Yeah. Sort of like this is what
social convention.
Right.
But it's a euphemism for a zonah.
Right.
It's like that's what the prostitutes would do to lure the men.
Right. But it's not actually. It's more than a euphemism. It's a calling card, and we'll see in the Gemara, just like unkempt hair was a calling card, so was also weaving. And actually, weaving was, it goes on both sides. Women used it to show their power, and the religious authorities were trying to control it. So that's why we have the practice of not weaving from the first day of Av till Tisha B'Av, because weaving is sort of creating a new life. You create a story, you create a life. There's deeper meaning there with fabric and to fabricate.
It's the same thing at Tisha B'Av. You cannot wear any new garments.
Right, and you don't wear new garments. If you recall the story of in the Odyssey, Penelope, weaves every night. She's working on a certain fabric, and she promises all the suitors that when she finishes it, right. So it's a way of she will marry one of them, but every night she undoes everything she did during the day, so she never finishes. And I mean, there's so much on that. In France, there was women who worked in monasteries making lace. They were not allowed to. A lot of things were connected, right, associated with weaving and sexuality, creation, the power of women. So they were trying to limit that. The Talmud in Masechet Ketubot, we'll see that brings a story of a rabbi who was going in the marketplace with his student, and they passed by an Arab woman or a non-Jewish woman, and when she saw them, she it says Zarka Pilcha, she threw the spindle at them, and she said to the young men, "Can you get me the spindle?" And the rabbi commented, "This is what the Mishnah is referring to." So one of the students of the Hachtam Sofer, Rab Hanoch Cohen Erentroy, there's a book studying the language of Hazal, and he says that this story, it connects with several other stories, shows that really that was a profession of, or the cover profession of prostitutes. That when this woman, even though the Gemara says she threw the spindle, she didn't throw it. She spun it. She let it go until he reached that she could really sort of direct it like a ball. It gets to him, and she says, and that is like that's a pickup line for her to get him. And I mean, it's not only women, by the way. There was the famous weaver who's a trickster in European folklore. Rumpelstiltskin, right? Well, he does the same thing. He entices a couple weaving gold and kidnapping their daughter. So the woman is a trickster, and now all of these things in the Mishnah fit together because she goes out in public with her hair undone, and that was associated with promiscuity, with like a liberated woman, sort of like she can do whatever she wants. She spins in the market, and even though she's not a harlot, but this is what other women who are do. And now we understand she converses flirtatiously with any man. Her husband wants to contain her. I don't want you to talk to other men. And cursing his children or being vocal, all these things show that she's not. She does not conform with the norms of society. But it has nothing to do with the traditional hair covering as we know it. So we have two more Mishnayot, and then we'll go to Talmud. Maybe not, hopefully we can do some Talmud tonight, but for that I don't have a translation, so I will go to the Hebrew sources and translate as I read. So here is what we have in the Mishnah. There's another Mishnah in Ketubot. Mishnah Masechet Ketubot, Perek Bet Mishnah Aleph. It's actually before that Masechet. It's source number 3-4 here. האישה שנתערמלה או שנתגרשה, היא אומרת בתולה נסתני, והוא אומר לא כי, אלא אלמנה נסתיך. So, a woman who's widowed or she got divorced, and now she argues with her husband or with his heirs. She said that she was married, when she was married she was a virgin. He says, no, you were a widow. And the difference is that you have to pay more to a woman who was her first marriage. So how do you resolve the dispute? You don't have the original ketubah. אם יש עדים שיצאת בהינומה וראשה פרוע, כתובתה 200. If she could bring witnesses and prove that when she got married, she got out of the house, or she was led through the streets of the city in a hinuma, which is another of those words that creates a problem because we don't know what hinuma is. Verosha parua, and her hair undone, again not uncovered, undone. Ktubata 200, meaning a woman who got married, a bride, was allowed to go out with undone hair, and which fits perfectly with the idea of this is like shows maybe vitality or desire or something like that. So she's allowed to display it for her groom. Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka Omer af hiluk klayot raya. They had an interesting way to publicize that the wedding is a wedding of a woman it's her first wedding. They would bring a barrel full of nuts or some kind of dessert for the kids, like today's popcorn, and they would break it in the marketplace, and all the kids would come and collect the nuts. And the reason was that those kids will remember, at the wedding of such and such, I had those candies, and then years later, this is the kind of a testimony that will survive for 70 or more years. Let's talk about Hinuma for a second, because that's interesting. Again, same problem with the later commentators. I'm not talking. I'll see what the Talmud says, but later commentators, 7th, 8th, 9th century and on, all look at Hinuma as some kind of veil. So when you say Yatsa'a behinuma, that's how she's dressed. Yatsa'a behinuma.
No, it's almost certainly a procession of some sort.
It is a procession, right?
Happened.
And not only it sounds like a procession, it sounds from the construct, Yatzat behinuma, that she is in the hinuma. It's something big that she sits in.
Like a chair.
Like a chair.
It's like she's carried.
Right, she's carried, right. And through that hinuma, they could see her hair. She's marched through the city. And indeed, this is what the Talmud says. This is source 5.2. ואם יש עדים שיצתה בינומה, מהי הינומה? סורחב בר פפא משמש דזעירי אמר, תנורה דעשה, רבי יוחנן אמר, קרייתה דמנמנמה בקלתה. So, he said again, the problem of translating one unfamiliar word with another unfamiliar word. So, tanura de asa, we know what asa is. Asa is myrtle, hadas. So, tanura de asa, again, we have the split. The later commentators say it's sort of a crown made of myrtle, the seam that is put on her hair, like the laurel. But earlier commentators say no, it's like a little sukkah decorated with myrtle, and this is still the custom among Iraqi Jews, not in a wedding, but for the night before the Brit Milah, they bring a big chair like the Kiseh Shel Eliyahu, and decorated with hadas, with myrtle, and they say that this is in honor of the baby. So there was this custom. So it could have been a chair. Could have been a canopy, right? Right.
And it's beautiful. The way
it's like carry it,
organized,
like
the
you cover it.
Right. No, it's beautiful. Right. It's beautiful. It's common. Right. It's a fragrant.
Branches
right.
and leaves.
Right. So that is one. So Tanura de Asa. The commentators say, the early commentators say it's sort of a sukkah. It's a canopy, and then the second commentary here is Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kiryeta Dimenamne ba kalata. It's something that the kala sleeps under. So later commentators said, it's a little veil that she puts on her face so she could sleep under. Obviously, like Alana is conveying through experience, obviously those people didn't try to sleep under a veil. You cannot sleep under a veil. It's not. But if it's like the earlier commentators say, it means a little canopy, or like, so this, she could rest and relax because she doesn't have to walk. That would make sense. So, again, when you look at the Mishnayot, and we look at Mishnah in Ketubot, chapter 2, verse Mishnah 1, it seems that there was no custom of hair covering. Yes, obviously, right. Well, like what Don is saying is that that you could still see it.
Yeah.
The brides being carried in.
Exactly.
Right, and now it's a long procession. So that's when the Talmud comments she could sleep in it, meaning that during that long journey she's allowed to rest a little bit. Let's look at one more Mishnah, and it's all these Mishnayot talk on one kind or another of hair covering, and that's another interesting thing. Nowhere in the Mishnah do we have a Mishnah that would say, a Mishnah that would say, כל הנשים מכסות שערן, אחת בתולות ואחת נשואות ואחת רווקות, אלא שבדיבור. And you would expect, just like I said in Tanakh, at least in Mishnah, we're a little more closer to our period, that there would be a Mishnah that says, אין האישה יוצאה לא בחול ולא בשבת, בבגד, right, whatever, ואין רואים את שוקה, ואין רואים את זרועה, ואין רואים את אפה. Like, why wouldn't they say that? Not in the Mishnah. The Mishnah only speaks about this unkempt hair, but other than that, no specifications. And in Mishnah Kelim, finally, this towards the end of the Mishnayot, really, in Mishnah Kelim, we find that that statement. The whole chapter in Kelim is chapter 24. Masechet Kelim, the whole tractate, is dedicated to description of utensils, what is kosher, what can become pure, what can become, etc.
It's in Torah.
Right, in Tarot. And chapter 24 is a whole list of trios. There are three types of this, three types of this. So, shalosh svachot hen. There are three kind of, they understand svacha is a lace, some kind of a hair cover or a scarf. We don't know if it's a scarf or a hair cover actually, that is woven with delicate lace or embroidery. של ילדה טמאה טומאת מדרס, של זקנה טמאה טומאת מת, של יוצאת לחוץ טהורה מכלום. They speak about a young woman. ילדה not necessarily means a girl, but a young woman, an old woman, and then יוצאת לחוץ, she who goes outside. Should either mean the one that women wear in public, or again a prostitute. This issue comes up a lot in rabbinic literature. The way the commentators look at it, no matter how you understand that, it seems that one of these scarves doesn't really cover the hair, because if it would, and then it would be impure, susceptible to tum'ah. So. But that is the reference that we have on that. We don't have commentary. So I wonder, should we continue to the Talmud sections? Okay, let's look at the Talmud. We have a short section from Talmud Yerushalmi, and then Talmud and then on Ketubot. So remember the Mishnah that we saw before. This is source 4:1 about the woman who separates the halal, where she's completely naked. The Gemara says, the Yerushalmi says, Hada amra agavot en b'hem mishum erva. Like the back of the woman is not considered erva. But the Gemara qualifies that. Hada de'at amer li bracha. That is it. You could say a bracha while you're there. Aval lehabit afilu kol shehu asur. That if you look, you gaze at the woman deliberately, it is forbidden. That if one looks at the soul of a woman, it's as if it looks at most private parts, and if it does that, it's as if he slept with her. So it's a very extreme opinion that we don't have any source for that in Torah or Nevi'im or Ktuvim or earlier rabbinical literature. But the way they see it is that one is not allowed to look at a woman at all. But we'll see more of that in the Talmud Bavli. This is important to look at. Shemuel Amar, Kol Ba'isha Erva. For a woman to raise her voice, for a man to hear a woman's voice is considered erva. It is, and now that's where we start seeing the shift from the word erva as intercourse or shame or wickedness into the kind of halachic label of this is something that a man is not allowed to see.
Is that where the Kol Isha, you said now they had the voice, does that Kol Isha come from that also?
Yes, that's the source of Kol Isha. That is the source of Kol Isha. But we'll see that in the Talmud Bavli, the pasuk, the verse that supports that, is a different pasuk. It's important to see that Shmuel is the first generation of Amoraim. So the Mishnah was sort of sealed or edited in 225, and he's the next generation. But that means that up until that time, nobody spoke about that. Nobody had a problem with a woman's voice. And obviously, if you look at Tanakh, you have Miriam singing after the parting of the Red Sea. Nobody had a problem with that.
And Devorah
was singing. Everywhere look at Tanakh, Sharim v'Nognim in Tehillim, people are singing and dancing, men and women.
I mean, King David also.
David HaMelech, right? The interesting thing I heard from someone, or maybe I read it, trying to explain Miriam in Shirat Hayam, how were they singing? The men are not allowed to hear women singing. So they say, they went to a remote place to sing. So that's interesting because
there's a better interpretation in the Tzenu Rena.
Yeah.
It may be original there. That ask the kasha, why did the women of Miriam do with macholim with drums,
right,
to drown out the sound
of the singing?
And then he adds, in our time, at weddings and such, women clap very loudly with their hands for the same reason.
Interesting. Very interesting. Today, what they do is just turn the volume on until they blow away your eardrums. Nobody can hear anything. So some people say on that they use the term trei kal lo mishtameh. If you two voices, you can't distinguish. Right. So it's just a blend like a general choir. But if you really follow the logic of kol isha erva, that it arouses a man's desire, then if they have all these women singing next to them, they will go crazy. And the second thing is how do you really take, if there were 600,000 men, we assume there were at least 300,000 women. Let's go with a very a conservative number. Only one woman for two men. So 300,000 women singing together. They really have to go to the other side of the desert to not be heard. But nobody had a problem with that before. But look at what Shmuel says. He's not talking about singing. Shmuel amar kol be'isha erva. Her voice is also attractive. Matam, and he brings the pasuk ve'aya mikol zenuta. He quotes a verse in Yirmiyahu that uses a harlot as or a promiscuous woman as an analogy to the Jewish nation, and he says from the voice or the sound of her promiscuity, the whole land became corrupt. And later on, this statement of Shemuel, Kol Beisha Erva, would be used by a certain rabbi. This rabbi had a dispute with another rabbi. He was invited to his house. The host didn't think much of the guest, so he tried to play him down. So everything he suggested, the guest showed his superiority in halachot. So the host said, "Lishdar mar shalama leyalta." The host Rav Nachman said, "Why don't you say hello to my wife, sort of, or send her a cup of wine?" And he says, "I cannot, because Shmuel said kol beisha erva," meaning that he understood that if she answers him and he hears her voice, it will be a problem. So, but that is really taking it to an extreme. I'm saying that it's important to see that because the in the same sugya, in the same discussion, in the Talmud Bavli, another verse is brought, and I'll just look at it here. Amar Shmuel. This is source 5.1. Amar Shemuel, kol ba'isha erva, shene'emar, ki kolech arev u'marech naveh. Completely different pasuk. Ki kolech arev u'marech naveh is a pasuk from Shir HaShirim. What does it say there? Hashmi'ini et kolech, harini et marayich, hashmi'ini et kolech, ki kolech arev u'marech naveh. Let me hear your voice, let me see your countenance, because you're beautiful, because your voice is beautiful. But what do you do with Shir HaShirim? The whole Shir HaShirim praises the beauty of the woman, and we don't even know that they married to each other. If he sees her hair, so do all other men. So this is a little problematic. But anyway, in the Yerushalmi, we only have Shmuel speaking about Kol Ba'isha Erva, and it seems like he's really representing a very extreme opinion of not even talking to women. Where does it come from? Could be the transition. Rav is the one who, remember the story about On Ben Pelet is Rav, who was the colleague and or also opponent of Shmuel. Rav was born in Eretz Yisrael and came to Bavel. Shmuel was born and raised in Bavel. And like Moshe mentioned to me before, the Persians were very strict with their control of women. And that might be the source of Shmuel's extreme opinion here, that you can't even talk to a woman. So I think we'll conclude here. There's one more sugya in the Yerushalmi but this is related to the sugya in Ketubot in the Bavli, so I would like to do it together. So I want to sum up like what we've done so far. We went through sources from the Tanakh, from the Midrash Halacha and Agadah, the Mishna, and some of Talmud Yerushalmi. There is a lot in terms of commentaries on these on all these segments, and one could get lost really in trying to put them all together and find the right versions. What I try to do is to look at them as the pshat, just in their context, in the context of the society, of reality, of the text, of the pure text as it is, and put the commentaries aside because they sometimes obfuscate our vision. And like I said, always we come from the point of view of the later generation, trying to project what we had on the earlier ones. But I think one picture really emerges very clearly from the whole discussion, that we don't find any reference to the concept of modesty, of what a woman is allowed to or not allowed to do, and what a man is allowed to see or not see in a woman until the 3rd century of the Common Era, which is relatively late. It's after the Mishnah, so we'll have to look more into the Gemara and see where it evolves. And I'll say from now that there is a leap, sort of. There's a long period when not much has changed, and that is after the Talmud, during the time of the Geonim and the Rif. We don't find much discussion on that. And then Maimonides is the one who codifies in the Mishneh Torah and bring it with much more force. And then the next phase is the Zohar and the Shulchan Aruch. But that is what we have so far. So before we conclude, see if anyone has any questions on what we did so far, and God willing, we'll continue at a future date the other sources. Yes, Eliu? No. I can't hear you, Eliu. Yeah, turn on your. I'll turn it. I got it. Yeah.
So one of the Mishnayot seemed to imply that a woman does not go out unless her hair was covered. That was the only place that I saw where it was suggested.
That a woman does not go her hair? Oh, in Shabbat, no?
Yeah.
No, but it's only on Shabbat, because the concern is about carrying, not about modesty. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a big.
Okay, so we'll conclude here. Bezrat Hashem, we'll continue at a hopefully next week, but this week we need to get to the bottom of all these sources. We'll continue them, and the class will be posted tomorrow on Spreaker, and we could all share them. And meanwhile, good night, Oshana Rabbah, happy Hag Sameach, Modim Simcha, and all that. Good night.